Good afternoon. It's 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. You're watching Co-op for Two, broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois. It's February 2nd, Sunday, 2025. Today, hopefully you know what you're here for. This is Game Design Diary Update number 7 on New York Noir, the game that I have been working on for the last 2 years with lots of help. You can see the box here, still bearing the old title of High and Low. It's been renamed to New York Noir to be a little more descriptive. We're still waiting for an update for the box art. Now, this is the 7th design diary. I'm obviously not going to cover everything I've covered in the last 6. Usually when I do these design diaries, I have an outline and lots of stuff to talk about. We usually go on for an hour and a half or so. I really don't have that much to talk about today. So I'm happy to answer questions, just have a conversation. I do have some things I want to show you and some updates to talk about. But we can take this as it comes. Let's not do our normal bookkeeping about what games we've played recently and all that. Let's just get right into it here. YouTube says 14 concurrent viewers, and the channel and the chat is all... My father was a sociologist. I don't have that much respect for sociology in general and all that kind of stuff, but I'm from the old school that's curious and interested in the demographics and gender sex breakdowns. And I just find it a little interesting here that we've got like 5 people in the chat. They're all women who have joined me, who are participating on this channel, solving these cases. One, Anna, is just writing a case as one of our top detectives. Board gaming is such a male-dominated field that I find it fascinating that the mystery games, especially the ones that I like most with heavy narrative, has such a skew female. It's still probably on balance. I mean, more male board gamers in general, but I just find that interesting. All right, let's talk about New York Noir. You know what it is. It's a Sherlock Holmes consulting detective inspired game, but calling it a game is doesn't quite capture what we've been trying to do and what I've been trying to do, which is build a system that lots of people can write cases for. It still amazes me that Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective was written in the 80s and people are still making fan-made cases for it, and amazing fan-made cases that I love. And so I'm interested in creating something that will last and will be fodder material for people to make cases for. And so we've been trying to figure out tools and materials that would make it more interesting for people to write cases. This is a passion project. Now, when I started talking about New York Noir, the idea of it on this channel with you guys, and we were talking about, should I work on it? Is this an interesting project? That was 2 years ago. And in the early stages, you know, I gave it a 10% chance that it would actually get finished or something would be done about it. And somewhere in the middle there, I said, this is probably never going to be available for purchase. No one will ever be able to buy this. This is a passion project. No one is going to get rich off this project, and I don't think that you could sell it as a board game and make any money just because the raw cost of the materials are so high. But that's not the point. The point is to make it something that people could, well, what I'm trying to say is that I think we're at the point in development where we will make sure there is a way to order the materials for this game. We will try to line up some printmaker, some place that will print the materials and send them to you, much in the form that I have them here, it's probably going to cost $100, $150 just for cost, just the net cost, without anyone making any money other than the printers, but that's okay. This is the kind of thing. But if we can get dozens of cases, then maybe it makes sense for those of you who really love this genre to make a one-time purchase of the materials or print them yourself and then have lots of free cases to play. All right, so now let me show you. So I recently went and ran another game of New York Noir at this local Champagne convention. I tried to sign up to run games and sit at a table with brochures and stuff of it. And here's my strategy. Other people say, well, are you selling it? What's the thing? And no, you can't buy it. And my whole point is that for me, this is the unreasonable project. This is the project that you spend 10 years of your life on, doing the micro fine details that no one cares about. And so my strategy for going to these conventions and sitting with the game or running it is, I'm looking for the needle in the haystack. I am looking for one person out of spending 50 hours at conventions at a table. I'm looking for the one person who sees it and says, this is what I want to write. I want to write stories for this. I want to write cases for this. And it only takes one, inspired, autistic, unreasonable person to write good cases for this that we can play on the channel to make it all worthwhile. So I am still just showing up, trying to put it in front of enough people that the one right person who says, hey, this speaks to me, I want to write stories for this. So I haven't found that person yet, but we're sort of getting there. We've got a couple more people writing cases. There are maybe 5 or so cases that you can play soon. We've got my one main big case, The Wrong Book, and then I recently wrote a tutorial, sort of a demo, easy case that introduces you to the system and will introduce authors to the web tools that I've written. But Rocky Helton wrote a case, a very early case that we're just getting reformatted, and Water wrote a case, the first case ever. And Anna is now working on 3 cases. So we're going to have a bunch of cases. I've got a couple more cases to write. Eventually, we should have a couple dozen cases to play. All right, anyway. So here's the rule book. I've recently gone through it and made more edits to it. And it seems like there's always something to do. But the FAQ is there, getting there. There's the navigation guide. You've seen all this before. Detective research guide. You've seen all this before. And you've seen the main directories for the game. I've showed them many times before. White pages, right? Yellow pages. You can see how thick they are. The reverse directory. So I ran a game of this a week or so ago. It went quite well. It's the hard case. The person spent 4.5 hours playing it. Then we ran out of time, but they seem to be engaged. Everyone seems to get the basic ideas of it. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about what the reverse directory is and what these are. You can see previous playthroughs. You know the neighborhood guide and maps. You know that Logan, this has no art here, but Logan has been working on putting 5 or 10 buildings in each neighborhood, drawing them from period photographs of the buildings. Lauren Budabelli in the channel is working on some park illustrations. That's the 2 places that I want illustrations. Each park will look different. And then some buildings. So when we print the newest version, eventually that'll be filled with art. I did want to show you one of the things I put off for a while was rewriting the code to build the directories in LaTeX. So let me just show you. old versus new. This is just, I haven't printed out. I mean, I've been working on the directories, improving the locations, fixing bugs, adding new locations, new types. But I do want to show you just one thing. Everyone who's playing it now is playing with this copy of the Yellow Pages. And if you notice, there's no page numbers. And that's because the way this Yellow Pages is generated was it generated HTML pages and then converts the HTML to PDF, which is fine for most things, but it has no understanding of page numbers. And it was actually quite a bit of work to convert the directory generation code to creating LaTeX, but that's what it does now. So this is the LaTeX version of the Yellow Pages, and you can see now there's proper page numbers. And if you see some of these entries, see like department store, see also variety stores, 5 and dime. If you go to page 29 for department stores, it'll say, hey, also check out variety stores on page, 112 and psychiatrists on page 86. Makes it very easy to jump around. And then I think there was something else I wanted to show you. Oh, okay, a new page that's been added to the Yellow Pages. A little how to find it. So we don't have room to put in every alias. Like I noticed one problem that people had with one of my cases was in the case, people kept referring to cabs, but really cabs aren't in the Yellow Pages because it's under taxi cabs. So rather than having a ton of blank entries that say this, go see this, because we don't really have time, I want to keep this on one page if possible. This is our new list that I'm going to keep updating so that if people have trouble finding something, we can stick this in here and maybe we can add page numbers to this. So just little fine tuning, and it's amazing how much work gets spent. They say, like 80% of the work is 80% of the time is spent doing those 20% little fine touches. And that's definitely what I'm finding. All right, this directories got built a year ago, but I'm still finding little things to fix and improve. I guess I should have done the outline first here, though. Let me discuss what we're going to do today. So that's the prelude. What I want to show and spend a little bit of time talking about today is 2 new directories that I finished doing. Fingerprint directory, criminal history directory. These are sort of ideas. I want to get feedback on them and show you them in detail now. Then I'll talk about some new tutorial videos I recorded. We'll talk about an update on playable cases and new cases. Talk a little bit about play-by-mail stuff and tie into New York Noir Improv that Matt ran for us on the channel. And then I want to spend most of today talking, if you have questions or things you want to talk about, but I want to spend a good chunk of today more seriously asking for volunteers. I've got a big list of things we could use help with, and it's getting to the point, the tools are getting to the point where we really can use that help, those volunteers. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about all the different things we could use help for, different little areas. Maybe there's one of them that appeals to you and you can get in touch with us. All right, so fingerprint and criminal history directory. All right, let me show you. Here's the 2 demo cases. Here's the 2 cases I've written, the wrong book, my difficult long case, and my easier tutorial case. Okay, but these are the 2 new directories that I want to show you and talk about. First is the criminal fingerprint directory. Now I showed in a couple streams just a little teaser of this. I printed out a full-size copy. This is going to change, but it's helpful to have a full-size copy so you know what you're up against. This is 106 pages. And let me walk you through how it works. So at the beginning of the book, we have a little tutorial on how to use fingerprints, how you might use them in your detective work. and a little discussion of the main classes of fingerprints. Okay, and then here are the main classes: whorls, left loops, right loops, double loops, arches, and tented arches. And various ways you could use fingerprints. Like, what if you've got a latent print in a crime scene? How would you find out who left that print? Using the suspect section, which I'll show you in a second. What if you've got a known subject? How would you check their fingerprints? Determining what specific finger number a fingerprint is from. A note on inexact matches and lead numbers. Okay, so let me explain how this works. The first half of the fingerprint directory, it's split almost exactly in half. The first half are just raw fingerprints. Could be from any finger, from all different subjects, but organized by class. So if you've got a whorl fingerprint, which looks like a little circle with concentric rings, then you're going to find it in the whorl section here. And there's different proportions of these in the population. I can't remember what's the most common, but tented arches and arches are pretty uncommon. So if you have someone who's got a plain arch or a tented arch, it's probably going to be easier to find their fingerprint. And if you've got someone who's got the most common type of fingerprint, then that's the hardest for a player to find. So let me just give you an example. So if you wanted to have a fingerprint show up in one of your cases, and you wanted to make it very hard for the person to find whose fingerprint that is, you would pick a common print type. Forget what's the most common. Somewhere I should list it. Maybe like, let's say, a left loop with no scars on it. That is going to look like a lot of others. Whereas if you wanted to make a print that's pretty rare, then you might give them a double whorl with a big pronounced scar. Now, I have added more scars than you would normally find on fingerprints just to make it a little less overwhelming, but we can talk about that in a second. Anyway, so that's, if you found a fingerprint on a crime scene in a game, you could try to look it up and find who it belongs to. Now, notice there are no names here. That's to give games more generality. So anyone writing a case could match any of these to any person in their case. The way it would work is, let's say, for example, this was your case book and they were reading it, and then they discovered a fingerprint on a gun that was discovered on the scene or on the window. Then they see this fingerprint. They would first have to identify that this is an arch or whatever, and then they'd go look it up in this first half of the book, and then they'd find a lead number. And then they'd look up that lead number in your case book that you're writing as the author. Oh, I didn't even print out an index. They'd look up in the index that lead number, and then they'd go read it, and it would say, you run the prints, and they come back to John Doe, and then they could go visit John Doe in the white pages directory, whatever. Okay, so they find a fingerprint. That's what they would look up in the casebook, and most of these obviously would have no entries in your casebook. Now, these numbers are all guaranteed to be unique and available. They don't clash with the white pages. But now the second half of the book are the same fingerprints, but organized by suspect. So you can see this criminal who's in the system under this lead number. Here are his 10 fingerprints. And these do match these. And these are alphanumeric. So for example, let's look at this fingerprint. Let's say you found this on the scene. You identified it. It's suspect 12067. So you can look it up in the case book, and it would tell you, you run the prints, this is who it is. But now, let's say you found it on a gun. Let's say you found it on the trigger of the gun. Okay, well, we could look up this number, 12067, in the suspect section. Here they are. Did I lose the page? No. Okay, so there's that fingerprint. It's actually a little bit of a difficult one to type. But okay, so there it is. That's going to match one of these fingerprints. Which one is it? 12067. Oh, it's here somewhere. It looks like it's this one here. So then you might say, that's weird. Why is their left ring finger on the trigger of the gun? Or maybe if it's an index finger, you might be able to figure out that they're left-handed or right-handed. Or maybe you could find the other prints on the scene. Maybe you got 3 prints, one on a gun, one on a glass, one on a window. And when you run the fingerprints, you see, hey, wait a second. That's my guy's suspect on the gun, but it's someone else's fingerprint on the bottle, on the glass, on the table. And maybe in your case, you might be told, here you might run into a suspect and you don't have an image of a fingerprint found at a scene, but maybe when you run into the suspect, it says, we have his prints on file, or we take his prints and they're prints, 12377. Then the player could jump right up to this and say, okay, this is my subject A, here's John Doe's fingerprints, here's Mary's fingerprints, and then they might be keeping their eye anytime they go to a crime scene. Do they pick up new fingerprints matching one of their ongoing suspects? Okay, so that's the fingerprint directory that anyone could use in any case. And the instructions both for, I guess mainly for players, how they might use it to do different tasks. So there you have it. There's that. And then there are tools for using those in the Casebook online tools. So I haven't talked about that in today's session, but you know that New York Noir has a website and a little language here called Casebook to help you write your cases. And if we go to the About page, we can see links here for some of this stuff. But if you're writing a case, while you're writing a case, if you want to stick in a fingerprint in your case, like you find a fingerprint in your case, you would just write, you find a fingerprint, and then you would just say, make a one function call and say, bring in fingerprint from this suspect, their right index finger, and it would go retrieve the image for their right index finger for this subject and stick it in. So the point is that you don't have to go figure out what's the name of this file. There are thousands of files for fingerprints. You just use nice little short function calls that tell it to bring in a fingerprint. You could change the size, or you can say, go bring in the complete set of fingerprints for suspect 72508, and it will plop that right into your case. So that's what the tools are that I've been writing for the last month to make it easier to write your case. Okay, that's the fingerprint directory, inspired by Gumshoe and other games that make use of fingerprints. So I've got some new ideas that I'm experimenting with, but you can let me know if you have other ideas. That is the fingerprint directory. Now, a more experimental, that's not that experimental. That I think I can envision how people would use it and make good use of it. Sometimes you're just adding the fingerprints for thematic reasons, but I think there's enough in there to possibly make it fun. And I have some theories about how best to use these kinds of things that might be labor intensive to search for. I think in general, what you should be doing is rewarding a player who wants to go on their own and find it early, but if they don't find it, the game will provide it to them sort of a day late and maybe at some sort of cost. Now, a newer, more experimental idea is the criminal history directory. This, I'm not 100% sure that anyone's going to be able to come up with a good way to utilize it, but I thought it was worth a week of work. That is the criminal history directory, which right now is about 88 pages here. Fingerprint directory was 106. Okay, criminal history directory. Let's take a look at this together. I'm sort of excited about the potential of this. That's sort of what this project is. Just create some stuff and see if people can figure out how to use it. And I'm hoping we can come up with other ideas. Anything that we can program something to generate the data. Okay, so criminal history. Let's see what this is. Here's a little introduction. New York City Police Department Bureau of Prisons maintains detailed, if occasionally spotty, records on criminals that have come into contact with the justice system. This directory can help you locate an individual using various demographic and behavioral criteria. And here's talking about the various criteria, tips on searching, note on fingerprints. Okay, so what is this book? It is 80 pages of this data. Okay, dense directory. Each entry here, several thousand, has a lead number. Again, you would look that up in your casebook if you found who you're looking for. And let's take a look at this together. What do we have? We have their age and whether they're male or female. It's all sorted by age. So we start at 16 years old criminals going all the way up to the 60s and 70s. Then you've got their ethnicity. Then you've got their height, their weight, notable tattoos and scars. So this guy has a ship on his bicep. This guy has burns on his lower lip. This guy has too many tattoos to even count. This guy's got a clock tattoo on his hand. This guy a tiger on his back. This guy has got a scar on his left ear. All right, then we've got any aliases known for this person. This guy's named Chief. The last known location where they were arrested. This is all generated programmatically, so most of the people are going to have been arrested in a neighborhood in Manhattan. Occasionally, you'll get someone arrested outside Manhattan, but in another borough of New York City. Then occasionally, last known address, last known time they came in contact with the justice system is going to be another state. And occasionally, less common, someone from a different country. So that's what you got. This guy's Queens, Brooklyn, Maine. This guy's in a different country, and so on. Rhode Island. All right. Then we've got how many years they spent in jail. You can see these are 23-year-old people, not many years in jail. As we get to older career criminals, this guy's been in jail for 15 years. What's his current status? Is he in custody? Is he free and walking around? Is he on probation? Or is he wanted and having escaped? Or maybe he's deceased. There are women too, much fewer women. Then we've got a couple of 2 columns that tell you a little bit about the kinds of crimes this person has been arrested for. So they're all given a sort of profile. Are they a repeat offender, a petty criminal, a professional criminal, an opportunist, or do they work for the mafia or gangs? So that's just a general classification for them, and that'll match up with how many years they're in jail. Like this guy's a repeat offender. He's got 14 years in jail. Professional criminal, maybe he's been arrested a lot, maybe not. The petty criminals will never have spent much time in jail. And then a little bit more a subclass of what kinds of crimes they tend to do. So misdemeanors, violent felonies here, violent felony property offense, white collar crimes. There's a list somewhere telling you like what they classify. And then you've got just the last crime they were arrested for, a much more specific crime, but not necessarily representative of all their crimes. But here's a guy who was last arrested for arson, for example. Felony property offenses is what he mainly specializes in. He's classified as a professional criminal. He's currently free, served 5 years in jail, was last seen in the Morningside neighborhood. No known aliases, but he's got a cross on his back. He weighs 202 pounds. He's 6'1", Caucasian, 37-year-old male. So, how would you use this if you were writing a case? Well, you might have something like witnesses describe someone in their early 40s, tall, with a scar. Well, then you would look, you'd start in your early 40s because it's all sorted by. And then you've got a couple of pages you could go through. Like maybe they're wrong, maybe they're not in 40s. So part of the skill of using this would be deciding like what's the best way to filter it. Like, okay, it was a robber. He was tall, in his early 40s, and he had a scar on his face. All right, well, maybe you figure, all right, scar on face, that's gotta be rare. Let me start there. Scar on right forearm, scar on palm, upper lip. Maybe that's our guy. 5'10". Is that gonna be considered tall? What does he normally do? He's works for organized crime, blackmail. That's probably not our guy. That's the kind of thing you would do. And if you can narrow it down to a couple of suspects, then you would say, okay, this really looks like our guy. Scar and lower lip. No, this guy's 5'4". He's too short. Right cheek, 5'7", too short. Maybe I should have filtered by height. Maybe I should just pay attention to over 6'1". Scar right eye, upper lip. Anyway, you get the idea. You would search for this. You'd have to be a little bit clever about what's the best way to filter it. Maybe you can narrow it down to 2 suspects. Then you'd say, okay, I've narrowed it down enough to 2 suspects. I'm going to look up this person in the casebook. And when you looked up that person in the casebook, the author would write and say, like, we pull the records for John Doe. Here's where he lives. And then the person could go talk to him. Or maybe in the game, the way you do it is you've got to meet several witnesses over the course of the case. The first witness says he was tall. Well, that's not going to help you. You'll never find you can't check all the tall people. But maybe you learn he was last seen in this neighborhood. Maybe you take a shot. No guarantee he'll still be there. Maybe you hear someone refer to your guy as Joker. And he's in his 40s. Well, okay, how many criminals are going to have the alias of Joker? Well, here's one. He's Dutch, 5'9", 45 male, professional criminal robbery. That sounds like our guy. Is he free and walking around? Yes. Turtle Bay neighborhood. That matches what happened at the crime. This could be our guy. So you'd look that up in the casebook, and the game would tell you, that's the records of Jack Sparrow. And then you would, from there, continue your investigation. So that's the criminal history directory. And I'd like to add more directories like this that people have available for writing cases. Will it get used? I mean, I haven't used it in any of my cases yet, but I'm curious. All right, let's check in with the chat a little bit. Kirian says, Amazon does in-house book printing. You retain the rights. I think we are going to need to find a proper publisher because it's very important that this stuff be spiral bound. That's the only efficient way to keep all of these directories on your desk and flip through them easily. And the cost for all these directories, if you just do it on a one-by-one order basis, would probably be $200. But if we can figure out that there are 500 people that want a copy, or we make 500 in advance, then we might be able to get the price down to where it's at least manageable. So I think it's going to have to be done a custom order in large sets, maybe in a box, whatever. But if people want to print it out themselves, they can do it. It's just going to cost you hundreds. Or you could just play it online. If you're one of these people that doesn't need to have a printed copy, these are all PDFs. You can download these right now and use them. Anna is talking about the... Melissa says, what's the best way to print these out? I like the look of the booklets. I'm old school, like to have things to thumb through rather than PDF files. Well, most of us are. Anna says, a case mostly uses 1 or 2 neighborhoods. You could print out only, so talking about the maps, I think I like the idea of this atlas as the maps. But one of the things, I was playing with a couple ideas. First of all, you can use my little removable stickers here. One thing I played with, did I not? Yes, I did. All right, so look, I was just experimenting with this idea. Here's a little plastic sheet, same as the cover, that I've cut. Can you see how let's see, what's the best way to do it? Can you see how I've cut the ends? You can't really. There, you can see I've cut, instead of just being holes, I've cut the ends, and you can snap it in there on any page. And my idea was, then you could draw, like, okay, my suspect comes down here. You could draw on a page, and then just pull it off and bring it to a new map and say, okay, let's trace the route of the suspect down here. So I thought that was a pretty clever idea. You could imagine giving someone a blank little sheet like this they could use. But another possibility is printing these on dry erase paper. I don't know how much more expensive and how well that would look. But yet another idea is that this book of maps could instead be printed as standalone large sheets. And I've shown that before. I printed out some 13 by 19 sheets. I mean, they're a lot bigger maps. But for those of you who really love to play on a large map, one alternative way of having the maps are in loose sheets that are big, 13 by 19, maybe even bigger. And you could just have them in a stack so that when your case you're playing involves a certain neighborhood, you just get that map out of the stack and have a nice big map of the directory. Yeah, this idea was pretty clever, though. Okay, back to the chat. Anna says, I also wrote a 4-letter play-by-mail case for the channel. Kieran says, I assume for the criminal history log, there are lines between and the camera just isn't picking them up. There are no lines between, but there should be. That's a good point. Thank you. I should add lines between them. The reflection of the plastic looks like a skull. Okay, I didn't see that, so we'll figure out what you're talking about later. Oh, you mean the teeth of the skull or something? All right, lines between the entries. That's a good idea. Let's see, what else? Before I move on to my next subject, the other thing I've been trying to do, one of the things we need volunteers for, I'll talk about, is more reference material. So the fingerprints and criminal histories are really full fleshed out mechanics with directories, but it would also be nice to have images of ballistic images for comparing bullets, shoe prints for comparing shoes. You could imagine other reference material in photograph form or in data form. And I have spent some time looking for all those things. I didn't have that much luck, but I did find a nice source of shoe prints. So I have several hundred shoe prints. So if you're writing a case and you want to use shoe prints as part of your mystery, several different footprints that maybe players could match, the functions exist in the casebook language now to say, go give me shoe print number 36, and it will pop it in whatever size you want. There's no other mechanic. There's no directory to search through for shoe prints. It just makes it easier to make your case feel a little bit more realistic, or maybe a witness describes the shoes as being wavy, or you find shoes in the house that are, have a weird pattern, and then you can show an image that either matches with that or doesn't. Other things that I've been writing into the casebook tool are tools for generating nice looking newspapers. So here's the New York Times portrait or landscape, and little different banners for different newspapers that were in New York. You can set the columns, you can insert pictures. It automatically expands the date of the thing and puts it where it should be. So the idea is that if you want to make a nice realistic looking paper in your case, the tool should make it very easy to do it. So in this case, you just write a little bit of code that says, set me out a layout for the New York Times. Here's the date that it is, headline, byline, contents, headline, byline, contents. Stick an image in here with this caption, stick something that says continued on the next page. I want 3 columns. I want it this font size, or I want it landscape with 4 columns. So if you're writing a case and you want to include a newspaper, whether it's a Sherlock Holmes case or a New York Noir case, the tool now that does this, that generates these books, which I've talked about at length, how it builds an index and all kinds of stuff this tool does for you. I'm trying to add more functions to make it easier to make a high quality case. And the newspaper functions are one of the newer things that I've added. Another thing I added, these are just some samples, is we recently played 2 games that I thought were intriguing in terms of little mechanics of the case log. So in general, the mechanic I have used for games while you're playing is you circle a letter when you discover something, and then later on it might say, if you have this circled, then you can go to this paragraph, otherwise this, whatever. And here's the default case log, which you could just bring into your case with one little line. Now, one thing I changed is I added these 4 generic tracks on the case log and added some functions here to make it easier to instruct the player to modify the tracks. And this was stolen from War Story, Occupied France, where Dave Neal used this to great effect. While you're playing the case, it uses a track to keep track of how hard the Germans are hunting for you, and then it checks the status of the track in different branching points. And I thought that's a very clever idea. We should make use of this. So maybe in your case, you want to have a track that controls, how dangerous the criminal is. Maybe they're going to attack again at a certain point, or maybe a track that keeps track of, how much evidence you've found, etc. So just little instructions for telling the person to modify track values. Nothing you couldn't just write out yourself. It just makes it a little easier to always standardize how it looks and make it look nice in a little box. You never have a page that had all of these. This is just an example of stuff. And then you could make little checks like, okay, if you're above this on that track, then do this. But the other thing we saw when playing Razorhurst Blood Alley is that Razorhurst Blood Alley did a very clever thing. Instead of just having markers that got circled, which is what I have been using in my cases, it had markers that could take on 2 states. So the way it did it was when you first encountered some item, it would say underline A. And then at the end of the day, when you went to research it, it would say circle it. So it was a way of saying, like, when you get it, you do this. And at the end of the day, it would check if you recently got it and tell you to circle it and then read something else if you hadn't. So I went back and added that feature to the casebook language to make it easier for authors to do that kind of stuff. So for example, you might tell someone circle marker K, underline marker, strike through marker, and then make it easy. So you don't have to write this out if you're the author. You just use a little function that says if underlined, whatever. And then you can ask them, like, if they've circled it, go here. If they've circled it, if they circle both of these items, if they've underlined this item, and then if you have marked in any way, circled, underlined, etc., marker L, then do this. Just examples of, remember, most of this stuff that this tool is doing is just producing little layout text that is standardized in a way so you don't have to remember it. You don't have to remember what marker K is. In your code, you just write if underlined, found note, then circle found note, whatever. Okay, so anyway, you can see some common stuff that you would do. Just examples. The whole point of this file is to show what kinds of things you can do, but also show what the source code that you would write as an author, what the marked up language syntax you would use to generate this. So my demo case and this little new feature case is used so you could see, hey, how do I bring in a fingerprint? Then you can look at the markup for this document and see how to do all these things. So if you want to know how to do a newspaper, you just look up the code that produced this book and see how it's done. So that's the idea, and I'll be updating this little feature demo case so people can say, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. How do I do it? You can look it up and see how it's done. Oh, I want to see what's the best way to make a line that looks like this. Then you can go look up the code in this file and see how to do it. So there's that. Okay, let's see. No more questions so far. Just ask questions if you've got them. Let's see what else I have here. I've uploaded 3 tutorial videos on using the New York Noir website and making games. So the first one just walks you through right from the beginning how you would create an account on this page and how you would become an author and create a game. And then I made a little tutorial on basics of the language and how to build your case, what it looks like, the various options, and then the third tutorial, a little bit more on writing casebook code, the markup language, and my suggestion that you should have your case on Google Docs so you can share it with someone who might help you edit it, and then you paste it in. Anyway, 3 introductory tutorials. It's just me talking, walking through things on screen. Nothing fancy, but I will continue to make these tutorials showing how to do different stuff. So I hope by the time I finish everything that you might want to do in writing a case, you'll see a tutorial for it somewhere. They're not great. Ideally, they would be edited more cleanly, and maybe they'll all be rewritten, and the casebook language is changing, so lots of work. This is all a work in progress. But right now, you can use that website. You can build cases. Anna, who doesn't have technical expertise in this stuff, has got her case written and building, ready for testing, and she watched these tutorials, and I'm in the Discord to help as well when you get an error, which you will, but it's now to the point. It's not perfect by a long shot, lots more to do, but it's at the point where it's actually usable. If you're one of these people that doesn't like using a website, there's a reason that it's using a website. It's because it needs a full install of LaTeX to build all these different things. It queues them up. But if you're one of these people that really wants to do everything locally, doesn't like the idea of any of their stuff being on the web, we're dealing with lots of old school people with these kinds of games. I sympathize. You can download the Docker image of this website and run it purely locally on your own machine through Docker. You don't have to worry about installing LaTeX and Python and all that stuff. It does require a little bit of knowing how to use Docker images, but you can download this image and run your own version of this website locally on your PC and keep your games there. So you can see here are the games. There's Anna's game, The Collector. Oh, I see. She's already working on her second case. There you go. And you can watch my tutorial for all the things you can do, what all this means, what these all different versions of, how to build your case, the debug reports that can get produced. For example, here's a mind map of my case from the wrong book. Don't look too hard because it's full of spoilers, but there's my difficult case, and you can see the plot lines and what leads connect to what. These mind maps, plot maps are automatically generated by the tool for you, although you do have to do a little bit of work if you want to add connections between things that aren't automatic. The tool can generate all kinds of useful stuff for you, including some reports that make it easier to spot problems, etc. So I am excited about that tool. It is a little nerve-wracking. There's always stuff to do. But there you go. At least you've got tutorials on it, and more coming soon. You let me know what you need help figuring out how to do. There is a full function reference document where you can see how to do everything if you're someone who prefers to read. Documentation will be improved as we go along. All right. Let's see. Let's catch up in the chat. I don't have that much more to show or talk about, really. What's the website again? It's nynoir.org or www.nynoir.org here. It's up here. There is the website, newyorknoir.org, or you can start that out with www. And so not only, this is mainly a tool for authors to build their cases. However, it's also going to be a sort of canonical official repository for games that authors have written. So you can see the wrong book, that's the one I wrote, is public. It's playable, some stats. If you click on this, you could download and play it. A little bit more information here about the difficulty, the duration, any cautions, what version it is, when it was published. And then these are all the publicly downloadable versions of it. One of the things the tool can do is build these cases in different printout sizes for different people. So for example, if you're going to print out a case and play it on paper, then you probably want a layout that's 2-column for compactness. On the other hand, if you were going to play it on a tablet, then you don't want a bunch of leads side by side. So this is a case where if you were going to play it on a tablet, you'd want one of those solo screens. That means one lead per page. 1 column, 1 lead per page. It triples the number of pages, but if you're using a tablet, you don't care about that. And all of the PDFs that are generated are fully hyperlinked. So every lead you go to, if it says go here, that's a clickable link. That's one of the things the tool can build for you. It makes sure that every lead, including the index table of contents, are all clickable, including the directories. The new version of the directories all have bookmarks that are fully clickable. And so there's different versions here if you wanted to print it out based on the page size. You could print it out in these nice little paperback sized books. I have an example of that somewhere. And maybe if you're visually impaired, you can get the large font version 1, etc. So hopefully this website will not just be the tool for authors building cases, but the repository for cases. And maybe we can add some features so people can leave reviews and make it easy to search for a game of the difficulty you want to play, etc. Okay. So this would be a good time to break and answer any questions. And then I've got a couple more slides, but not much more. I do stay around. I want to talk about the volunteers we could use if this seems like something that's interesting to you. Any other questions before I talk a little bit about play-by-mail stuff and then talk about volunteers? Anna says, I'm writing the third case of my trilogy. I think I'm at the halfway point. Meanwhile, I'm trying to use Jesse's tool to build the booklet for case 2. Very exciting. I've taken a little peek at Anna's case. Not the details, not the writing, but it's full of historically cool photos and stuff, lots of documents in it, which is great because I do think one of the ways that we want to improve on the masterpiece of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is to have more full-size documents that are revealed as you play, a little bit like merging in a hybrid cold case game. So it's really fun to see Anna's case make so much use of that. Anna, Anna is in academia. Anna is a professor. Anna, what do you teach? What is your background? Is it history? I mean, Anna is one of our historical people in the channel, and she brings that to some of our detective work. But I don't remember if that's Anna's official degree or not. But one of my favorite things about these kinds of games is the feeling of traveling in time. To me, in fact, that is the biggest appeal of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and of this game, New York Noir. I'm in it for the mystery and the narrative, but I'm really in it more than anything to travel back in time and feel like I'm in a living, breathing world where I can look around, visit famous places. And that's why so much effort has been put into New York Noir to put real places. All of those maps of Manhattan are real. All of the yellow page ads here are real places, real ads that were in real yellow pages in the 20s and 30s. Maybe 20% of the entries in here, 20%, maybe 20% are real places that were at their real locations. So chock full of nuts. These were the real addresses of this chain diner in Manhattan. So 80% are fictional, and they've been designed not randomly. They've been designed so that in very specific ways they're distributed over the city. I've talked about my vision for that each neighborhood should be like a small town. So in each neighborhood, there's at least one bar, one restaurant, or 2 bars, 2 restaurants, a doctor, a drugstore. It's designed in such a way that each neighborhood can feel like a little bit of a small town. But a huge number of these places are real places that really existed at the time. And it's very important to me that this game feels like traveling in time. And that's part of what Logan, who's doing the art for these buildings, for the maps, has taken so seriously. He's really finding the real architecturally interesting buildings that existed in these neighborhoods, putting them where they belong, drawing them so they look right. And Anna is sort of perfect for this because she is so historically minded in her stuff. And some of the documents in her case look really exciting. I can't wait to play it. But maybe that's a good segue. Maybe rather than talking about play by mail, I'll just take a quick comment here about volunteers and a specific volunteer playtesting. So we've got a little bit of a dilemma here, and that's this. To write a case for New York Noir, you should be using the tools that I've developed, which has its own little markup language syntax. It's mostly Markdown. It's most of what you'll be doing is plain text, but there's a little bit of a hurdle to get over to learn to use the syntax and the Markdown of the language I've written, which I call Casebook, for writing these cases and then building them. And when there's an error, it's a little confusing. And the people who like to write these cases don't tend to be programmers. They tend to be writers that aren't all that comfortable with the syntax of some of this stuff and how to do fancy stuff and what to do if they get an error. So here's the dilemma. The dilemma is that I would be the best person to help authors write their cases. An author says, hey, I'm getting an error in this tool, or I don't know how to do this one kind of thing. Can you take a look at it and help me fix it? I would be the perfect person for that. The problem is, that's a problem, a little bit of selfishness. I want to be able to play these cases. In fact, if I can't play the cases that people are writing, then this project loses much of its appeal to me. I mean, I'm in it for creating this world, yes, but I'm also want to play the games that people write, and I'd love to be able to play them live on the channel. We've played a couple, and it is quite enjoyable. So the problem is that if I really work on helping, if I'm the person who helps authors solve problems and formats their cases, then I could inadvertently read stuff that I shouldn't, and it might interfere with me playing the case. Now, I have a very bad memory, so really, if I took a few months off, I'd probably forget it all. But it's not ideal. And what would really be great is if we could find one or two people that, you do not have to be an expert coder at all. You don't even have to be a beginner coder. But if you have to be a little bit comfortable with learning the casebook language syntax and the tool and getting a little good at it, it would be amazing if we could find one or two people that were willing to help authors get their cases formatted beautifully using the tool. And that does mean you take a little bit of a bullet because you'd be reading a little bit about the cases. But there are some people, like I like reading instruction books better than playing the game. There's some people that like the idea of seeing behind the scenes the nuts and bolts of how the sausage is made for a case and don't really care if they actually play the case spoiler-free. They can help produce it, make it look nice, fix problems. Maybe they'd see some stuff that they wouldn't otherwise see, and then maybe they don't care if they'd play the case. Maybe they'll wait and watch us play it and see how things unfold, or they're just curious to look behind the scenes. So we could really use a couple people, even just one person who was serious about it, who could learn the tools well, watch my tutorials, learn how to make cases, and be on standby for other authors who say, hey, look, I know how to write my case, but I need help formatting it for this tool using the language, or I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to make this word bold. How do I do it? Stuff like that. I'm going to write the tutorials, record the tutorials, try to make it as easy as possible. Nothing is going to save us from needing someone to assist in those cases. So if that sounds like it might be you, stop by the Discord or the Board Game Geek page for New York Noir and let it be known. And then I can help you and you can help them. Another thing we could really use more help with is playtesting cases. Now, playtesting these kinds of mystery cases, whether it's New York Noir or Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, or really any narrative mystery game, is a tricky thing. And that's because a normal board game, if you create Pandemic, you can have that play tested by groups hundreds of times They play it once, they play it again. It can play new versions. You fix something, they play it again. Takes an hour to play, etc. These games don't work like that. First of all, you can only really play it once. Most of these games take several hours. If they fail and break, they can be frustrating. And each playtester really can only play it once. I mean, you could ask someone to go through it again, but no one really wants to go through it again. That's like asking someone to read a book 3 times and look for the couple paragraphs you change. So a good playtester who's willing to playtest a case in its early form and make suggestions and find problems is really valuable. And again, this is a case where I could playtest, but then I can't play the final thing on the channel, which is what I'd love to do. I'd love to be able to feature these cases. When someone writes a case, I would like to be able to feature it on the channel and play through it. But that means that an author needs help playtesting. An author can't play their own game because they know everything. So again, another reason why it's hard to playtest. Now, we have someone, we're lucky enough to have someone wonderful, Debbie Levy, who's been helping all of us author edit our cases. And Debbie seems to be willing to edit the case, knowing that she's going to read some spoilers, and she's a huge assistance in editing, fixing grammar and syntax and typos and other issues. But that's different from a playtester. So there are a couple people who have been willing to playtest, who have playtested my cases and others, but we can always use more. And it takes a special kind of person who's got the patience, who's willing to playtest these games and then offer feedback and offer constructive criticism. And those people are also taking a little bit of a bullet because they can't join in the live stream and help us play the game. They might join in just to see. And you're almost guaranteeing yourself to get an inferior experience. Now that sounds bad, but I mean, if you're playtesting a mystery game, you're playtesting it in its raw form before things are fixed, that your problems you're going to find are going to get fixed. But you're not going to get to experience that. You will have played the slightly inferior version. But we could really use more playtesters. It's one of the reasons that cases for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective sometimes leave something to be desired because they just couldn't be playtested enough. And I think having a stable of willing, helpful, insightful playtesters could really improve the caliber of games. So if you think you might be willing to playtest games, stop by the Discord or the Board Game Geek. And I think what we'll do is, this is a volunteer stuff. There's no money. No one's going to be making money on this project. However, there may be a possibility of raising some donation funds to pay for certain things if we need to. And I think one of the things we will try to do is obviously acknowledge the people who help out with this project. But at least what we could do is try to say that if you help playtesting, by the way, if you're playtesting, you're going to have to be doing it on the digital PDFs on a screen, because the early versions of these cases, you probably don't want to print them out. I guess you could print them out. But what we will try to do, I think, is for those of you who significantly volunteer on this project to help, in addition to all of the appreciation and the good work you're going to be doing in making these cases better, no one's going to get paid. But I think what we could try to do is the people who are substantially helping, like a playtester who really is regularly helping playtest, we will at least try to make sure that when we get the final versions of the directories and stuff, we will make sure we can put in your hands a fully printed copy of this so that you could continue to help with nicely produced full versions. So I'm not inclined to be sending expensive $200 boxes to reviewers, but I am very happy to send to spend the money to send the playtesters and editors and people who are really spending time in this world helping the rest of us, at least we can do is send you a fully printed set. But it won't be anytime soon because it's going to be another year before we get to the final printed version of the directories and maps and whatever. Okay. Hour and 10 minutes we've been talking. All right, I want to show the other page of volunteers that we could use, but let me quickly talk about play by mail. So we recently did a improv play by mail game that Matt C wrote for us as we played it. Each week we got a new letter, we got to make some choices, and he set it in the world of New York Noir. So we used the white pages, yellow pages, that's where the case happened. And the play by mail games continue to be one of my very, very favorite ways to play these mystery games. And we've played a couple, and the one that really jumps out is Murders by Mail, which I don't know if the website is still up. I don't know if they're taking new orders, but it's basically a Sherlock Holmes consulting detective game, except when you make your move, you do it online, and then a week later you get replies from all the places you sent people. You read them, you decide where to go. And I really love it. The forced, slow, long game is so appealing to me, with longer entries, longer stuff to read, more time to chew over it. And there's not many of them out there. And I am absolutely committed to extending the tools and services for New York Noir to support play-by-mail games. So we will have the ability for authors to create play-by-mail games that people can play, submit their moves, get a reply a week later. There'll be a version where they could just get emailed PDF to print out, or we'll figure out a way to send real letters. We'll figure out all the details of that later, but essentially you will write the case the same way, mostly the same, whether you were writing a case to print out in a booklet to play standard or play by mail. But the web server will take moves and do all that, and we'll try to figure out new things to do. I do think there's room to innovate in this area and make really cool play-by-mail games that are elevated and do some new cool stuff that people will find exciting, and I can't wait to play some of those games. And I think the reason I mentioned this improv New York Noir is I think Matt's cases might be the first games that we try to convert into play-by-mail games. That's still quite a ways off, maybe a year away, but I do hope in a year you will be able to play some play-by-mail cases in the world of New York Noir. And everything I've talked about, all the tools for building stuff can be used to make Sherlock Holmes consulting detective games set in London as well. Maybe we'll try to support that on play-by-mail as well. Maybe we'll try to build our own directories for London, etc. Okay, so that's the play-by-mail stuff. Little discussion of it. Discussion of some new ideas. I do have some ideas on how to make a play-by-mail game paste well and sort of automatically visit places. I have some stuff. I talked about it. I can't wait to have a full design discussion of how I think these games should be designed, but we'll do that another time. All right, let's wrap up here with my volunteer page. I don't remember if I went over this list before, but I'm serious about it now. Like, it's time. It's a good time to volunteer and work on this project. If it speaks to you, boy, we could use some volunteer work now. And I've tried to split things up so they're mostly independent projects. So I've told you how to get in touch with me. There is a Board Game Geek page for New York Noir or the Discord. And I think soon I might set up a blog for New York Noir and a way to talk to people. When I posted the tutorial videos, they went up, and that's typically when I do that, we get a bunch of unsubscriptions because people want to get board game reviews, and I'm sticking up tutorials on the channel. So maybe I should figure out a way to separate it. I'll worry about that later. I've talked about playtesters. I haven't talked too much about it explicitly today, but the real thing that we'd love to have, that I would love to have, is more authors writing cases, especially if this fingerprints and criminal history stuff appeals to you. I'm ready to write the new tools and help as much as I can to be the assistant to help you write mystery cases. But if you're interested in writing cases of any kind, so I've got a big page of ideas for settings. There's a whole bunch of fun ones. I'd love to play more supernatural horror Cthulhu settings, but you do whatever you want. Invent your own detective, and it has to be in New York City. That's where the setting is in the time, 20s to 50s. But do whatever you want. You want to make a supernatural case? There's a whole list of ideas. Like we realized Sherlock Holmes could still be alive in the 20s and 30s. He might be 60 or 70. So what about a case where it's like Sherlock Holmes and a young detective working with Sherlock Holmes, the old man Holmes running the case? Or maybe you want to write cases that are, you know, like a kid solving kid detective mysteries. Anything is possible. And write them however you want. If you want to write a dark case with adult language and adult themes of real violence, go for it. If you want to write a family-friendly case, if you want to write a case that deals with your politics, there's lots of tricky areas here in the 20s and 30s. You could imagine misogyny, homophobia, sexism, racism. So I would love to see people explore some more serious issues. What would life be like for a black detective in the 30s? A black PI, or maybe a black police officer? Like, that's really a rich area to explore. Same thing for a woman detective, a gay detective, whatever. I mean, whatever that's my strategy for dealing with the more controversial, troublesome issues of this world and this time period, is just to encourage anyone who wants to make a point or explore an issue to do it. All right, I talked about it would be great to have someone to learn the tool to help others. There's a whole bunch of stuff that could use someone's eye on them. Lots of code got written and lots of databases got studied to generate ethnic names. One of the ideas for New York Noir is that each of the neighborhood has its own personality with different ethnic distributions, and the white pages has 10,000 names generated trying to use ethnic names. The first version of the directories that's out there had lots to be desired, and Nicola helped, and we went and found all sorts of new names. So the new versions that aren't public yet are much better, but could still use someone going through them and looking for oddities that have stuck through. What I haven't talked about is that there's a dozen additional directories that are for authors only, that organize the data, the names and stuff in different ways that makes it more usable for an author. Like there's directories for each neighborhood, so you see only the people that live in that neighborhood and the places, but there are also ethnic directories. These are all private directories for authors. So you can see, let me see all the French people in the city, and let me see all the people sorted by their last name. So if maybe you want to make a case where you've got some common last name. Anyway, but we could use people to go through some of these and look for issues. Talked about that. There's a whole bunch of extra little special maps that we need that I haven't talked about today. So each neighborhood has a map. You know about that. But then there are a couple extra maps at the back that are used occasionally that we've sort of just cribbed from other sources. So here's New York City. There's Manhattan, where all of these neighborhoods are. And then you've got the other boroughs. You've got Brooklyn and the Bronx and Richmond, Staten Island, and Queens. So here are little maps of these other boroughs, which we've just taken from a very cool book on a marketing book. And the way the game works is you could also visit, if you identify a neighborhood in another borough, there's one entry for each little extra neighborhood. There's a map of the subway system. We could use an existing subway system map, but if we could get someone to redraw one that wasn't as busy, that would be nice. And then here's an overview of Manhattan showing these neighboring little islands. So Randler Island, Governor's Island, the Statue of Liberty is on this island here. And then you've got Rikers, where there's criminals are kept. So it would be nice to have someone redraw a simplified, not as busy version of the outskirts here. So there's a bunch of little specialty maps that it would be nice to have someone remake. And then I'm thinking that much like the criminal directories are little tools, I was thinking it might be nice if we had like a dozen detailed floor plans of buildings that authors could use in their case, like of historically important buildings, like maybe Grand Central, Penn Station, Museum of Natural History, Empire State Building. And so you'd basically be writing a custom drawn map with locations that on rare occasion, maybe someone would write a case where there was a showdown in that building, and then there would be some spatial stuff going on in that building, much the way I do now for Central Park. So Central Park's a little bit of an oddity here, where all of these locations of interest in Central Park are numbered. And you could look these up in the Yellow Pages. But so you might have a chase in Central Park and retrace someone's path, or someone could say, meet me at the south end of the reservoir. And then you would know, okay, I'm probably going to go here. But it'd be nice to have some other maps for some other cool buildings in New York City. The park maps, which Lauren is working on a little bit there. And then we've got a bunch of jobs that we could use artists for. For example, all of the Yellow Pages, all of the Yellow Page ads are taken from real Yellow Page scans. And occasionally you'll get one that looks a little weird. The contrast is off. We could also use someone to go remove the phone numbers in these ads because the phone numbers don't match their real phone number here. So here's ABC Electrical, ABC Electrical. There's the number that you would reach them at, but this one doesn't have a phone number. But occasionally there'll be a phone number here, and that's just not relevant. It's not used in our game. So it'd kind of be nice to go and tweak some of those. And maybe if you want to make new Yellow Page ads for interesting things to fill in the Yellow Pages. I think, I don't remember what that's about. And then generic advertisements, I talked about that. The neighborhood atlas guide here. Each neighborhood has a little written stuff about the history, the overview, points of interest. Some of these were written in a hurry, though. We could absolutely use someone who's interested in the history of New York City to go through these and take another whack at them, improving the text. Some paragraphs were taken from Wikipedia, so like it would be nice to go through another pass, punch it up, make sure there are no errors. rewrite anything that's cribbed from Wikipedia. Then we've got the maps that Logan is doing a lot of work on fixing, but there are map issues. There are map issues for certain areas that this is newer than 1930s, so a street name got changed or a new building block got moved around, or maybe a map you can't see well, something. So someone could always use more help doing that. More adding entries to the white pages or the yellow pages. I'd love to add more real people to the white pages, movie stars, politicians that were around, and looking for more businesses that might be useful. Like I said, I have a big list of 1,000 or 2,000 real places that we put in the directories, but we could always use more people looking at those, looking for new ones to add. My favorite thing, just thinking of new mechanics, like you saw the criminal history and other stuff, but there's lots of other interesting ideas that I'd love to explore. If someone is interested in the mystery game genre, who's interested in how do you design these mystery game cases in a way that creates good mechanics. And I've talked a lot about that as we play these games, how having time limits gives you some tension, but at the risk of giving people bad experiences, and how New York Noir tries to solve some of that with required markers. But I think anything we could put into the game that creates decisions, interesting decisions, would be a good thing. And there are some new ideas we can explore. And I have some ideas for delayed actions, things where you have to make a choice. Do you want to run the fingerprints, run parking records, whatever, and then you wouldn't get those results for a couple days. But I love brainstorming these ideas. So if people are interested in brainstorming new mechanical ideas, maybe ideas that would just be for a play-by-mail or in this game, I'd always welcome that. The Discord is probably the best place for that. And then I could use Python coders to help. My native programming language is C++, but lately I've been doing a lot of Python, and everything for New York Noir has been done in Python. Two major projects. One is all of the tools for building the data, the maps, the directories, and generating the fictional people and everything. And then another separate project, which is the website tools for building the PDFs and running the play-by-mail and doing the user accounts and this website. But it's all in Python. This website is built with Django, which is a library for doing sort of content management stuff. That's all Python, and I would love to have another one or two Python coders to really improve some of these projects, especially the play-by-mail stuff is not even begun, and it would be great to have a full independent mobile playtesting tool and app that would let playtesters play these games online and collect feedback. I also have some idea about a nice desktop editor tool would make writing cases a lot easier. I'd actually love to work on that myself, but I feel like I have to do other stuff first. Maybe even build some AI stuff into that, I think would really be neat. And then I talked a little bit earlier about how I would love to have more documents and more reference material, images for things like ballistic, tire tracks, that kind of stuff. And then we could always use the tech experts, there are not many of them left on the planet, to create some templates for laying out stuff, like maybe parking tickets and criminal history, to make it easier for authors to make nice looking documents. And then for the rest of you, just providing encouragement for this project. Just watching people come on Board Game Geek on the page for New York Noir and clicking that little heart that says they're a fan of the game and they want to hear about developments. Do not underestimate how much of a motivational factor that is for me and others working on this. This project is not being, I mean, I've been working on this for 2 years, but I'm not working on this for commercial possibilities. I'm working on this mainly for the satisfaction of working on it, and because there are people that seem genuinely interested in playing it and are excited about the project and excited to see what we can produce and excited to give feedback. And that's the fuel of this project. So maybe even if you don't want to volunteer in any other way, if you can cheerlead the project, if you can say, hey, I'm interested in this, this is neat, I want to see it. If you stop by that Board Game Geek page for New York Noir, give it a little heart or make a post somewhere and say, this looks really cool, or this is what I'd like to see. That goes a long way. That really does help. Maybe at some point we will ask for donations, financial support. You can always become a Patreon supporter of this channel. All the games I play here are purchased by myself with help of the Patreon supporters. I have no relationship with any company and don't get any review copies. I love having a relationship with the viewers of this channel and not having any other conflict of interest. So if you feel like you like the stuff on this channel and you want to help keep this channel unbiased and unattached to any other company, you can always become a Patreon supporter of this channel, which would help buy the games and pay for some of the materials and stuff that we use for New York Noir. I think that wraps up everything I have to say. So there's a couple cases you can download now on the Board Game Geek page and play yourself, but there's lots more, there's not lots more, there's a few more cases coming very soon. Anna's cases, Anna is already looking for testers who are willing to test her case, but Rocky Helton, the Cincinnati police detective who wrote a case that we played, his case is almost ready to be downloaded. So if you go to that page on Board Game Geek and subscribe to the page and click the little heart, you'll get updates, notifications when there are new posts on the forum, new games released. If you're interested in playtesting, you can post there or come to the Discord. I'm going to start keeping a list of people who are willing to playtest so that when there's a new case to be played, you'll get notified. And if you're willing to playtest and give feedback, that would be great. Okay. We're all done with my prepared stuff. I believe I have written a demo case. If you're curious, you can go into Board Game Geek and download the demo case along with the directories in PDF format, and you can play through the demo case, the easy demo case that basically teaches you the system. So if you're curious to get started, there's no reason you can't go grab that, download it, see if it inspires you, see if it's something that interests you. And that's it. But I'm happy to stick around and take questions for a little bit. And here's what I'll do. I'm not gonna, this is like when you have a class and you ask if anyone has questions, and no one ever has any questions until you sit there for 10 minutes and then someone decides, all right, I'm bored of this silence, I'll just ask my question, or I'll get up from the other end of the room where have this on in the background. So I'm just gonna sit here for a little bit and we can talk. If you've got questions, you can ask them. If you've just got things you want to say, whatever. And we'll count down the YouTube viewers. And when we lose a bunch of viewers, then we'll wrap it up. But I'll sit here for a couple of minutes and see if a question occurs to anyone. There's no rush, no hurry. I don't have anywhere to be. You are free to sign off now. You've watched the mandatory portion of this video. if you want to hang around, if you want to talk about other stuff on the channel, upcoming games you want to see played, reviews, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about. We could talk about aphantasia, when you can't visualize anything in your mind. I just told my sister, people don't know about aphantasia, what it is, but I told my sister that it turns out it's genetic. And I asked, we have a little family chat, and I said, you know, I have this thing, aphantasia, where I can't visualize, I can't create a visual, I have no mind's eye. I can't create an mental imagery and look at it. And my sister was like, what's going on? I have this. I never knew it was a thing. So it's pretty fun. Debbie says, I have to admit, I'm sad there isn't more of the main campaign to work on. So Debbie Levy is talking about the campaign that I have planned out for New York Noir. I have a set of cases that deal with my one detective. And the idea is that you'll play through the campaign and go from his early life through his arc as a top detective down to the tail end of his life. And I've got my plan of 13 cases or so, and I've written 2 of them. I've written the demo case, and the wrong book are sort of catch him in different ends of his career. But I have a lot more to write. I've got one more that I'm super excited about writing, that I'm just started writing. But it's a lot. It's going to take a long time before that full campaign is done. Kieran Villard says, I never played any of these Sherlock detective game types. Do you have any recommendations for where to start? I absolutely do. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which was originally released in the 80s, now has 4 or 5 boxes that have been reprinted by Space Cowboys. There's the brown box, which is the Thames Murders and Other Cases. There's a red box, which is Jack the Ripper and West End. There's the blue box, which is behind me there, which is Carlton House. And then there's the most recent box, which is several years old now, called the Baker Street Irregulars. That's the green box. And that's the box I always recommend. I think that's the best place to start. I think it's the best bang for your buck. It's the most solid cases. It's created by Dave Neal, who's a master in this genre. And I don't think you can go wrong. And you can, after you get it and play it, you can watch me play through all of the cases in that box. Each case takes a couple hours. And you can watch my spoiler-free review of the Baker Street Irregulars. But that's where to start. It's fully in print. And the other benefit, if you've never played this kind of game, you buy one of these boxes, buy the Baker Street Irregulars or the Thames Murders. Once you have that base set, you also now can play any of several dozen free print and play cases that people have written, which are very good. So it's a little bit expensive. It's probably like 45, 50 bucks for that box, but you get a lot of games in that box, and you'll get a map and the directories for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. And then you can download any of the fan-made expansions. You can watch my videos on the best kept secret in tabletop mystery games. And I'll let you in on the secret. It's that there are these free print and play cases for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, and they're really quite extraordinary. Okay, so Kieran is pointing, everyone's helping Kieran find where to grab them. They're box sets that have 10 separate cases in them, basically. That's what they used to do. And if you like Supernatural instead, you could check out the Bureau of Investigation, which uses mostly, well, half and half the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective system, but really the green box or the brown box, Baker Street Irregulars or the Thames Murders is probably the place to start. Okay, what else? What else we got? Finished my coffee, but also have tea. Micah Hedman says, maybe you mentioned this and I missed it, but could the tools be used for writing Sherlock Holmes consulting detective cases? That's a great question. And the answer is absolutely yes. The casebook tool, which is used to produce these cases where leads are organized alphanumerically, where you can make newspapers, where everything links to everything else, was written so that it could handle Sherlock Holmes consulting detective cases. In that case, it organizes headings for each neighborhood, northwest, southwest, northeast, southeast. It will automatically file your leads into the proper place, and section headings will be southwest, whatever, just like you would expect a Sherlock Holmes consulting detective case to do. It was absolutely designed to support out-of-the-box Sherlock Holmes consulting detective cases. Now, I haven't used it fully for one, so probably as someone started doing it, we would find little hiccups. Like, I think I had options if you don't want to list them here. If you don't want to list the entries in the table of contents, you could exclude them. I know sorting is done properly. You could also use it for mythos tales and Bureau of Investigation cases. So yes, it was absolutely made to do that. There's no reason you couldn't use the tools I've made, and I hope people do use them to make Sherlock Holmes consulting detective cases. Shindal is mentioning Adventures by Gaslight and Gumshoe. Adventures by Gaslight and Queen's Park are two standalone large cases for Sherlock Holmes consulting detective, and they start to get into the territory where the reprints are not as good as the originals. So I've done reviews of all these things, but the Baker Street Irregulars, for sure, Space Cowboys, it only exists in the Space Cowboys version. That's that. If you get really into the game and you want to play some of the older cases, like Queen's Park or Adventures by Gaslight, then you should do more research on Board Game Geek about what versions to play. And I've posted in all those forums my thoughts. In fact, Jonathan Warner and I wrote a 70-page fix patch kit for Adventures by Gaslight, which includes a new epilogue, a new map, a new hint system. So if you're interested, if you get serious about it and you want to play Adventures by Gaslight, you should check out that PDF that we uploaded to the Adventures by Gaslight section. Adventures by Gaslight is one of my favorite experiences. Now, Gumshoe is a whole other story. So Gumshoe is behind me there. Gumshoe was created by the designers of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, and it is the most ambitious game in this genre. It is noir. It's set in LA, and there's a lot about it that's amazing, but it is the closest inspiration for New York Noir. I say Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective type game, but really Gumshoe was the closest inspiration. It has fingerprints, it has autopsy reports, it has big newspapers, and it has one big continuing game that covers 10 days and a whole bunch of interleaving cases, which is what my campaign will eventually do. But it also has a bunch of issues. It's way out of print. It's never been reprinted, but it is an amazing game. If you get serious about it, you shouldn't start there, but if you get serious about it, go to the Board Game Geek page for Gumshoe and look it up. Eventually, there's a playthrough of some of the case on this channel, but unfortunately I started playing it before I was playing everything live on the channel, and eventually it got so overwhelming that I didn't record the rest of it. But I do have a second copy. I'm waiting a couple more years till I forget everything, and then we'll play it together on the channel. But Gumshoe was the direct inspiration for this project we're talking about here. You do have to be aware if you buy Gumshoe that there's a first edition and a second edition, and the first edition has problems. Although now you can get the entire set of documents for Gumshoe at the Internet Archive. So if you look around, you will find downloads for the errata, but also everything else. If you wanted to play Gumshoe and you didn't want to shell out $200 for an out-of-print copy on eBay, you can get all the material at the Internet Archive. What else? What else do we got? "23 viewers, 11 likes. We've been on the air for 1 hour and 45 minutes. Maybe we'll go till 2. I mean, we can go as long as there are questions, but even if there are no questions, I'll sit here for the next 15 minutes. Is there anything else for us to talk about? Has anyone seen that new, I mentioned it at one point, the new pandemic Lord of the Rings game that's due out this year, middle of this year, June or July or so? Looks really good. And it looks like it's designed almost entirely either just by Matt Leacock, the original designer of Pandemic. Most of the Pandemic spin-offs have been clearly someone else built on top of the Pandemic system, and Matt Leacock sort of gets looped in. But this one looks like it's really of interest to Matt Leacock, and he really helmed it. Yeah, it's a board game. I mean, if you're looking for, it's been a while since I talked about pure board games here, but my favorite board game experience of all time is the Pandemic Legacy series, which I think are just unparalleled. And Pandemic in general is what I think the pinnacle of cooperative board gaming. And it's spun off lots of different versions, but this one looks like a sort of deluxe Lord of the Rings themed Pandemic where Matt Leacock is pulling out all his tricks. So I really can't wait to try it. Off topic, I've smashed through the Adventure 4 mystery cases these past few weeks. Got Kaifeng arriving this week. Yes, Kaifeng, there's a number on the Kaifeng. It's Kaifeng 982 or something. It's down there. We've played through all the adventures. They are some of the best cold case games. They are very good. In fact, they held my top spot for best cold case games for a long time, and they are still some of the best, some of the most polished. But Adventure has stopped making them a long time ago. There was Fire in Adlerstein, there's Arctic Fatale, there's Still Lake, and there's Kaifeng, whatever it is, 982, whatever. They're all good. And we've played them all on the channel. You can watch my reviews and watch our playthroughs. The company, though, that is challenging Adventure for the spot, and which is very active, unlike Adventure, is Cryptic Killers. Cryptic Killers are some of the most consistently good cold case games. And if you're interested in that genre, which is totally different than this, but it is a mystery game, then you really can't go wrong with the Cryptic Killers games, and the harder ones are extraordinarily good. So you've got lots to look forward to if you work your way up to those. Rob says you should break out black stories or something to fill out the time. Well, that's, well, we can't do both things. I can't don't think I can fill that out while I'm waiting for questions, but I did get a new game similar to Black Stories that's a little bit of a twist on it that doesn't look good, doesn't look like it's going to be good. But I could bring it out if no one is coming up with any questions about New York Noir, which it sure looks like no one is. We could try it and see if it's any good. All right, let me get it down. I got to take this off screen because I'm sitting here in my shorts. Does anyone know what this is? All right, before I talk about what this is, if you haven't watched my holiday gift guide to tabletop mystery games, I talk about like 70 different games. I recommend 70 of my favorite games in different little subcategories. And it says holiday games, but it's really my take on the best mystery games in all of these different genres. So that would be a good video to watch if you haven't watched that video. And maybe even my top new games of 2024. But definitely the tabletop, the holiday gift guide. I probably should have named it something different. Okay, let's take a look at what this is while we're waiting for questions. If you've got New York Noir questions or ideas, please be willing, just shout them out. Okay, one of my favorite games for groups is called Black Stories, which was also has been recreated by different companies over the years, and I used to call it Crack the Case because that's the game where I learned it from, and that may be the oldest one. And essentially, the idea of that game and its spin-offs like Black Stories, and now Amazon has a couple more that look the same but are titled differently, called Detective something. But basically, it's a whole bunch of cards. Each card is a separate little mystery. And all a mystery is it gives you like an introductory statement, like Rob was driving in his car and he died and the laundryman was to blame. And then the players have to figure out what happened, the full story. And you can't figure it out by that one sentence, but you can ask yes or no questions. You're like, well, did he die by accident? And then the host, whoever's got the card, will say yes or no. So only by asking yes or no questions do you try to figure out what happened. And I think it's an amazing experience because it really shows you, it's a little window into the human mind. It shows you how difficult it is to ask yes or no questions, to pinpoint a theory, how you get stuck on ideas, how you have to break out of the box. It's really wonderful. All right, so Three Secrets is a little twist on this idea that does not look as good, but it's very similar. Let's see what it says on the back. Your challenge is to bring these hidden truths to light. In Three Secrets, you're a detective struggling with unsolved cases. Undercover agent knows the truth, can't reveal everything they know, or their cover would be compromised. It's just thematically trying to set this up. Ask them questions, solve the case. The clock is ticking, so it wants you to use a timer. We don't care about that. All right. I think the only thing the app does is start a timer. So I have just got this, so I'm not sure about the rules, but let me see this. You ask questions. Okay, goal of the game is to unravel the three secrets of a case. So there's always going to be three secrets. You're all on the same team. You just ask questions. Let's see. So you look at a picture, and three elements are highlighted in color. Three elements are highlighted. They give clues to the three secrets. And on the back, which only I get to see, it tells me what each secret is, and it tells me the story. You don't get to see any of this. You just see this as a sort of prompt. Okay, color indicates whether the case is easy or hard. Okay, that's neat. Where is the color? The front? Where do you see the color here of the difficulty? Oh, I guess whatever color it is. If it's yellow, it's easy. And if the highlights is purple, it's hard. Okay, that's going. Start the app. I don't know why you need the app. It doesn't seem, it knows what case you're playing. Let's see. Why do you need the app? Hopefully you don't really need the app, but I guess we could use it. Maximum 15 minutes and 5 minutes to guess one secret. If you get one, then you go to the next one. All right, I don't care about that. All right, so the only thing I'm allowed to answer is yes, no, not exactly, or irrelevant. On the back of the card, there are clues, one for each of the 3 secrets. At any time, I can read one clue. So if you get stuck, I can read a clue, but you have to press the magnifying glass on the app, which just cuts the time. The only thing that the app does, I think, is just run the timer. You guess a secret, I press the star, and it starts over. All right, we're not going to worry about any of that. And then you get a score based on how many secrets you could figure out. Playing without the app, just use your timer. That's it. All right, you ready to play? George Costanza says, I'm very excited for the Matt Leacock Lord of the Rings game. Yeah. All right. 19 concurrent viewers. We're losing viewers. All right. So green, was that the easiest? Yes. Okay. Let's start with the first case in the box then. Here it is. You've got the case of Carlo. You've got 3 secrets. You've got this thing here. You've got this thing here. And you've got this thing here. Now, ideally, it would be nice if I could keep this on the screen while I read the back, but you'll just have to remember that. Remember that it's not like the mystery is solvable by spotting things. There's really nothing important to spot here other than these 3 things. But really, you could do this without any card at all. You could play this in a car and just say, Carlo is at a restaurant, figure out his secret. You just have to ask yes or no questions. All right, so you guys could start asking yes or no questions while I read this to myself so that I can answer the questions. When we play Crack the Case, I tend to scan the cards so that I can just show them on screen. But, all right, let me read this here. Okay. All right. All right. So you could just ask questions about this or just ask questions about New York Noir, which is what this session is supposed to be about. Let's see, I can put these on the screen at the same time. Rob says, here's a plugin idea for you, freeze a screenshot. Yes, actually, that would be quite useful. I do have sort of a way to do that. I do have a way to do that. Let's just see what that would look like if I did. If I do this, let's just see. Let me just, out of curiosity. All right, so if that's on the screen, and then I take a screenshot, and then slideshow split. All right, so, oh no, that's live. So this is a screenshot from when we played War Story, a screenshot when we played a Time Stories game. Don't look at these if you don't want to. Oh, there it is. Okay. So slideshow overlay. There you go. So it's now got a frozen image of what used to be on the table. So there it is. There you go. Now I can read this all I want while that stays on screen. I could improve this a little bit. Slideshow split. What does that look like? That's also showing what's here. What about this? Oh, there we go. That's the best thing for you. That's a saved screenshot. How do you like that? Is there money missing from the... Oh, but then you can't see what the chat. That's what I don't have. I don't have a view where the chat is up. Okay, I'll remember to add that in the future. But for now, we probably want to do it like this. Okay, is money missing from the register? No. Are the doors locked? Unknown and irrelevant. Feel free to ask questions about New York Noir, too, which is what this session is supposed to be about. It looks like it's only Rob playing. Does no one else want to play? Rob and I can play this on Discord if there's no one else want to play. In fact, this would be a good game to play over Discord. Is it a vegetarian restaurant? No. Was someone poisoned? No. So you can see it's very much like Black Stories or Crack the Case. Is Carlo a waiter? No. So there's 3 secrets you have to figure out. Is the restaurant open for customers? I need you to rephrase that question. George Costanza says, New York Noir question. 13 cases planned for your arc. How long do you expect that to take to finish? Maybe a year. Anna has almost finished writing 3 cases in the course of a couple weeks, but I'm not that fast. I think if I was just focused on writing them, I could get them written faster. But it depends on how much other stuff I'm doing, because I'm writing all these tools. It's slowing me down. Is Carlos a worker at the restaurant? I guess you would say no. Mickey Hedman's question about is the restaurant open for customers? I need a clarification of that question. You need to be more specific. Is this a restaurant? Yes. The answer is yes, but that's not one of the secrets. Does Carl have permission to be there? Yes. Is Carlo angry? He sure looks like he's angry. I guess unknown, irrelevant. Is someone missing? No. Is Carlos the owner of the restaurant? Yes. Carlo. Yes, he is the owner. I was disappointed because there are no customers. No. Or irrelevant. Is that a lock on the door behind him? I mean, it sure looks like a lock, but it's probably a lock. It's not all that important, though. George Costanza says, I missed the setup, so I don't know what we're meant to determine. You're basically meant to determine the story, but 3 secrets. 3 secrets. I wouldn't say, I don't think it's probably not right to say that they're related to the highlighted items. The way the game phrases it is the highlighted items are like clues, but don't take them too seriously as clues. Like, I think you could go off on the wrong track if you thought that the highlighted stuff is going to provide much help for you. It's just sort of to have something visual to hang on to. I really think that's the idea here. It's just to have something to visually. Are there any guests at the restaurant? No. You mean like currently? And the answer is no. Was the restaurant closed down? No. Should there be guests there? No. Is the vegetarian restaurant closed because they ran out of cash on the register, tried to get all 3 in one? The answer is no, but that's a good lesson about what won't work in these kinds of games. You're guessing the solution as a shot is it's the brain wants to do it, but the odds of being right are so low. And if you're wrong about one thing, then I'm just going to say no. It's supposedly not vegetarian. That's right. It's not. I know. It looks like it is. Don't take those parts too seriously. Can I show you some of the art? Is there an issue in the kitchen? I don't know how to answer that. So I'm going to say clarify. Let's just look at some of the other art in here if you're curious. Pretty nice. I like it, how stylized it is. I like the artist work. Evocative. If this is the easy case, I wonder how level 7 cases are. Are there rats in the kitchen? Unknown and irrelevant. Is Carlo alone in the place? Yes. I guess you know that there's some sort of crimes going on, right? I think these are all crimes of some sort. I think. Unsolved case. It does seem like they're all sort of crimes. Is Carl about to burn the place down for insurance money? Yes. Yes, you have solved one of the secrets. In fact, yes, you've solved one of the secrets. So if we're playing the official rules, should there be staff there, Rob asks. I don't know, but Melissa has jumped and gotten one of the secrets. So there's two more. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you like which. No, it doesn't really rank them. Down to 14 viewers. Don't hesitate to ask a question about New York Noir. Rob says, okay, I guess we shouldn't look too hard at the highlighted images. Nothing here indicates insurance fraud. There you go. That's your, you've made a correct observation. The highlighted stuff is very roughly, it's basically just to hold your interest. Did anyone see that Alex Radcliffe of Board Game Co. put a video out today called something like 10 Ways to Make Money as a Content Creator? And I am loath to watch it. I feel like if I watch it, it's going to upset me. I think Alex Radcliffe is pretty reasonable about everything. It's a little ethically dubious that he took on a job as marketing or working for GameFound, and then he's also reviewing games and stuff. But he tends to be fairly ethical and talking about his biases and stuff. But top 10 ways for content creators to make money sounds like even when it's reasonable, it's going to bother me. Melissa says, is there a bomb in the kitchen? The answer is yes, but that's part of the secret you already solved. It's not a new secret. Melissa's just jumping for answers, jumping for guesses. George says, do we know if anyone has taken your open source New York Noir material in a place you didn't expect? Well, no one is using it yet, but you do. Did the restaurant lose money? Yes, Rob, the restaurant is losing money. Is that one of the secrets? Sort of. Let's say that you've figured out another secret, that the restaurant is losing money. It says the restaurant's losing money, he's in debt. Same thing. All right, so you still have one more secret to go. George Costanza says something that I haven't talked about yet, but you remind me to talk about it, which is I made a post on Board Game Geek in the New York Noir game page about an idea for making a light role-playing game using New York Noir. And I'm very curious about it. And I wrote a couple pages on it. There's a link to it on that thread. And we're absolutely going to pursue it. But it's basically going to be a mystery game run by a game master who's basically running the mystery. But it's mainly a mystery game with a little bit of light role-playing. So if you're interested in that, stop by the Board Game Geek Guild, not the Guild, the Board Game Geek page for New York Noir. You'll see there's a little post about role-playing game out of New York Noir. And role-playing games aren't really my thing, but I'm really excited about this idea. It's basically a GM is going to run the mystery and could run a case. And in fact, I'm going to go run one of these existing cases with some friends in this style and see if it works. All right. No, we're doing two things at once. Did Carlos embezzle all the money? No. The restaurant lost money. He decided to burn it down. And what more? There is one thing more. Yeah, so I've said you figured out 2 of the secrets. So the restaurant is losing money. Carlo is going to burn it down, blow it up for insurance fraud to get cash because he's in debt because the restaurant's losing money. But there's one more secret. There's one more secret. Now we're up to 20 viewers. That just means people are stumbling on the stream like, why is it still going? Is the remaining secret related to the doors? No. I often refuse to answer the questions in Crack the Case that are like, is it related to X? So I reserve the right to refuse to answer those questions. But no, it's not related to the doors. All right, now we've gone on 21 more minutes than I said it was going to go on. I can see I got tricked into running this game. That might never end. Normally that would be fine, but it is weird because we've called this a game design diary. But all right, we'll keep playing this. You guys can get it. I will answer related questions for this one session, if you ask. And if anyone has any more New York Noir questions, feel free to ask. Bob says, this is just a short play test bonus content. That's right. So you have to find out one more of his secrets. I guess the way this game works, just to clarify your rules, like the secret could be anything. It might not even be that related to the rest of it. Like the secret might be, he killed his mother when he was a kid. But it's a little bit related to the case. So I guess it's not totally unrelated, but I'm just giving you a explanation of how like you're just trying to find out his secrets. But it's not totally unrelated to the rest of it. But don't think it's a direct causal chain. Give you a clue for the last secret. All right, I'll give you a clue. Let's see. That's a good point. It said I can give you clues. Okay, that's good. That's a good point. That's unique about this game. Actually, I think Crack the Case had it too. Okay, here's a clue. Here's the clue. It says every chef, he's also a chef owner. Every chef has a secret ingredient. There's your clue. Every chef has a secret ingredient. Did he poison the food? No. Did Carlo run out of his ingredient? No. Is his secret ingredient humans? Yes. Melissa has solved the entire case. All three answers Melissa got right. All right, let's look at what the back of a card looks like. Back of a card looks like. Shows you the image here. He's a famous chef who secretly serves human meat. His restaurant is taking losses. He's deep in debt, so he decided to blow up the restaurant in order to defraud the insurance and get some cash. So you can see here are the 3 secrets. And the top line here is the clue that you can give the players. So if you didn't get the part about blowing up the restaurant, I could have told you there was a dangerous smell. I could tell you things aren't going well. And there was your clue you got for secret ingredient. Melissa got all 3. She was just on the right wavelength. It shows you with this kind of game, you can get on the wrong wavelength, and then it's very hard to get yourself out of the rut. But Melissa got it. So there you have it. It actually, you know what? It actually works just fine. It actually works just fine compared to Crack the Case and Black Stories. I think maybe you have to give the nod to Black Stories and Crack the Case because they frequently have a setup that's more perplexing, right? Most of the setups are like, this crazy thing happened. How do you make sense of it, right? Like, Bob died while mixing his milkshake. And then you're trying to figure out that one thing. But this is not bad. Having 3 little secrets with 3 clues, I think that's not bad at all. And it's nice to have that little illustration. Black Stories uses it. In fact, Black Stories and Crack the Case also have illustrations that aren't helpful, but gives you something to focus on. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me for another Design Diary, number 7. We've come a long way. I hope to see you on the Board Game Geek page for New York Noir or on the Discord. You might consider becoming a Patreon supporter of the channel if you want to support this stuff, or just encourage the development of the game is good enough. I'll see. Well, we'll probably play something this week. If you want to help decide what to play, you can jump on Board Game Geek and find the Co-op for 2 Guild. There's a link to that on this YouTube page, or of course the Discord, and let me know what games you want to play. We've been playing 7 Citadel. We'll probably play that again this week, maybe if Jonathan's up for it. I have a bunch of games behind me. Melissa, in fact, just sent me a couple games, one of which you see Camp Calamity behind me, and then 2 more Deadbolt Mystery Society games. I'm almost due to review another 5, so that'll be soon. Maybe we'll play the Sherlock Conundrum, Deadbolt Mystery Society, or Camp Calamity, the Hunt-A-Killer game. I am curious, and I'll try to put up a review of Lost in Adventure, The Labyrinth, which we just played a couple days ago and was quite good. Did Melissa send you 3 secrets? That would explain things. No, Melissa didn't. All right, thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.